We have a pandemic of irrational certitude. It's rational to be uncertain. And people that are irrationally certain protect that with cognitive dissonance. And you can't have a conversation with cognitive dissonance. You have to switch into persuasion, which is sort of uncomfortable for some of us. We'd rather have an argument.
Yep.
But if you are met with cognitive dissonance, there's no alternative because they will not argue rationally. And scientists should always be rationally uncertain. And I don't know if that ability to constantly evaluate, reevaluate, think things through, be forever uncertain of every position, no matter what, at all times. That's just the scientific method. Was I like that? Did I have proclivities to that already, or was it because of my training? I had very rigorous scientific training, and I remember it being hard. But I don't remember being resistant to the idea that I don't know anything and that I need to constantly update.
Well, that's the whole Broken Science Initiative, is trying to get away from the frequentist stuff and move toward Bayesian stuff. So and the whole idea of uncertainty as a framework is so fundamentally important for us to get our heads around, because then you hear things like, the science is settled, or believe the science.
Yes, these empty slogans, these shibboleths are ridiculous. First of all, science is never settled. Science is not a thing that has an opinion, it's a methodology.
Right.
And it's a methodology that's about disproving. The null hypothesis is not used there very much anymore. That was what I was reared on. You first prove what it isn't, and then you do it again and again and again until you start to arrive at a place where you can contemplate the truth, not arrive at the truth, contemplate the truth that maybe it's so.
Yeah.
With the advent of COVID, all of a sudden in the major medical journals, things went only one way. And I thought, well, what is that? It's never, ever one way. This is where I thought, something's very, very wrong.
One of the
All right,
things.
you want to go back to my Loveline days?
Yeah, Loveline, and because I think the way that you were sort of brave enough, I don't want to embarrass you, but really taking on
No, I can see it now. Yeah. No, it's because the present moment's requiring some of a similar thing.
Right, but I think it's actually, it seems innate in you.
I wonder, because I would have said the opposite. And I'm a good soldier. I like that. When I have to step outside of the ranks, it is exceedingly uncomfortable for me.
Interesting.
But I have these instincts that I just can't not do it. So Loveline, we're in 1983, 1984, and we just barely worked out the epidemiology and the syndrome and whatnot. And I was hearing from Anthony Fauci that we needed to go out and educate about this. We needed to get out and talk to people about it. There was sort of this wind blowing coming from leadership. And Aunt Fauci was somebody I admired my entire career.
Okay.
And by the way, if you look at footage of me early in the pandemic, trying to calm everybody down, listen to the CDC, listen to Fauci, they'll get us through this. Just look at their advice. Of course, anybody that wants to cancel me leaves that part out now. Now, that was actually the thing I got wrong.
Right.
What I was saying was right.
Well, your initial instinct about COVID was, guys, this is overblown.
I became strident. I became excessively hubristic about it. But I just said one thing. 10 years ago, we went through a pandemic that killed 300,000 people, H1N1. And you don't even know that happened. Now we're going to have one that may kill 1 or 2 million people, and we're going to shut the world. Isn't there somewhere in between?
Right.
We're going to hurt people. We're going to make it worse if we react to this thing. It's the way you're seeming to want to react. Why are you whipping this into a frenzy? Cancel.
Yeah. Well, the New York Times said you were spreading disinformation.
So it's 1983, 84, and I get this opportunity to go on the radio. And here were these most amazing questions in the middle of the night to FM disc jockeys, the most important health questions for young people being asked of people that have no fund of knowledge and answers.
Right.
And I thought, no young person had heard about AIDS. They just hadn't heard of it. And I thought, oh my God, we had just been through the sexual revolution. I was 24 years old. And at that time, adults didn't consider that adolescents might start having sex too. It was not on the table. Condoms were behind the counter. You had to ask the pharmacist to bring them out.
Wow.
All the STD, STI material was shrouded in Latin. So you didn't have to, you couldn't, it was a secret language. And you wouldn't dare talk to somebody about it. And it was considered bizarre that I did. bizarre. And I thought, my God, this is just basic information. They should have it. They could understand this.
Were you prepared for that? Like, did you know when you were going in it was going to become controversial or?
No.
No, okay.
But I knew, I had a sense that by me going in the public and trying to educate, somehow that was stepping out of line. Like I knew that the people in authority would want to be the ones to do that. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, I got in a lot of trouble. I stopped doing it. And in that 6 months where I stopped, things completely flipped, where it became a mandate for doctors to go out wherever we could and talk about this epidemic that was coming in all contexts. And the term safe sex came along, and we were supposed to talk about that. And so I kind of tiptoed back out. I was doing AIDS hand over fist, so AIDS patients constantly. The darkest of darkest hours. You can't imagine. I thought it was going to break into the heterosexual community. I thought that could easily happen. So we used fear. It's going to happen. No sex without a condom. Remember, if you have sex with one person, everyone that person had sex with, you're going to have sex with.
Right.
And sort of as the years went by, we congratulated ourselves because only 175,000 people died, not 2 million like we thought could happen. And good, we used fear. Unfortunately, that playbook came up again in COVID, and it was not just not the right playbook for COVID. The media landscape is so different. It's just not the right strategy at all.
The other thing that came up for me that I thought was really interesting was the book that's on sort of like warning people about prescription drugs, specifically Oxy.
Standard of care is a good thing, okay? A well-established standard of care is the standard for a reason. But when you see evangelical physicians step in for a cause, watch out. We had evangelizing pain medicine specialists who came in and said there should never be pain experienced again in America. The answer has always been there with the poppy and opioids, and we are going to make sure that no one ever has pain. And if you don't treat pain as aggressively as you treat heart failure, you're going to go to prison and malpractice and have civil lawsuits. So your pulse is just as important as your happy face scale around your pain scale. My patients were dying at the hands of my peers, just dying. So I saw it right away. I saw through what this was. I just thought, oh my God. I was getting sort of sanctioned by the Department of Mental Health, the California Medical Association, my hospital administration, the Joint Commission on Hospital Accreditation. Why? Because I wouldn't give my heroin addicts in withdrawal who were uncomfortable an opiate.
The question would be, why aren't there critical thinkers that are powers that be?
Because they are in bureaucratic structures, and that's not suitable to critical thought. It's anathema to critical thought. It's how you get fired.
It's like a genetic defect, because like evolutionarily, this is not a survival skill. It's not a good position to be in, to be standing up to authority or to be challenging, the chief or whatever. You'd be left in the forest and die.
Right.
But it's the only way progress happens. So it's essential for society.
Totally. It is an instinct that once you acknowledge requires action. It just requires it. There's something wrong going on here. It is hurting people. And if I don't stand up and say something, I'm part of the problem. And I just can't do it.
Are there any other things that you think in terms of sort of like letters to a young contrarian that you would sort of say to somebody who is really trying to do right and learn as best they can in this very complicated mess?
Study your history. That's my number one thing. Have some understanding of human psychology in groups. All these things, whether it's the opioid crisis or COVID, whenever people swept into these hysterias, it's dangerous for everybody. And really, if you don't want to be a part of that problem, just step back a little bit and just listen at least to all the opinions out there before you sweep into the prevailing winds. It's rarely the good guys that are into the winds. I mean, just look at McCarthyism, or look at again the Jacobins, or you just look at it. The Bolsheviks, the Mensheviks, just one after the other. These are people that did horrible things in the name of good, believed they were doing good, but were just in this collective where they couldn't see what they were doing. They couldn't see the truth. Step out of it and watch out for envy. Be careful. It's so destructive.
It's like you're wrong about one thing. You might be right about a lot of things.
Right, wrong, black, white thinking. That is all narcissism.